Hey, and welcome to the Amberdata podcast. I'm Chris Martin, analytics engineer at Amberdata. Today, I'm joined with Bryce Ferguson, the co-founder of Turnkey. We have a great conversation about DeFi, about trends among retail and institutions, as well as trends among developers. And we're going to talk a bit about private key management and why it's so important. So, Bryce, one of the things that I wanted to ask you was about your transition into crypto. You moved from consulting to product to strategy. What was your career progression like? How did you make your way into the crypto industry and found Turnkey?
Yeah, so I think I've always had very diverse interests. I actually went to a visual arts high school and then transitioned into studying engineering in college and have kind of just kept a wide perspective on the different things that I've worked on. After college, really just wanted to keep that wide perspective, see a lot of different things, and went into consulting. Um, I think a lot of the people who go from consulting to tech will tell you that it's exciting in the beginning, but becomes pretty repetitive after a while. And it's a bit removed. You're not really actually seeing your projects through to the end. You're building these beautiful PowerPoints, but kind of just throwing them over the wall and hoping for the best. And so wanted to go from being kind of an advisor to actually getting my hands dirty. Moved to San Francisco after my time in consulting, and with that, initially started at a company called Stitch Fix, working on their strategy team, which again was kind of adjacent to what I was doing in consulting. I think as I was there, though, quickly realized that there are different variations of tech, and I think with that, I was kind of going down the crypto rabbit hole. Had some friends at Coinbase, and started talking to them about what things were like at Coinbase. And I think I was just excited for a faster paced, more bleeding edge, more innovative approach to tech. And the more I talked to people at Coinbase, the more I realized that was the case there. And so this was early 2018 or maybe even end of 2017 that I started these conversations, and then joined Coinbase shortly after that. And initially was on the BizOps team. So was working more in kind of a consulting-esque role, working across the business, things like exploring how to improve conversion for consumer customers, looking at a very high level at staking, and just kind of seeing the crypto industry from a high level. I think that was super exciting for me because crypto, especially in 2018, was kind of opaque. I mean, there were things online, but there wasn't as much of a community, and it was a little bit harder to break in and see what was happening. And so this was the first time that I was really starting to see all of the different facets of crypto. Pretty quickly, I got very excited about staking at Coinbase and started working more closely with the custody team because we wanted to bring staking to institutional customers first, since they were demanding it most quickly. With that, ended up transitioning finally over to the product team, and was kind of the first product manager driving Coinbase Custody and working on a lot of the more crypto forward features. So launched the first staking products at Coinbase, worked with a lot of the different networks to bring their investors over to Coinbase Custody and work on those network integrations for Coinbase Custody itself. Launched the first governance token and governance products for Coinbase, so both Compound Governance and Uniswap Governance, both really exciting projects to kind of work with those teams and bring their vision to life for institutional customers. And really just got to see the crypto industry evolve from my time at 2018 to 2021 at Coinbase. Super exciting journey. I think the longer I was there, the more it really clicked into place that this was a very important industry that was developing. There were incredibly smart people, and things were just changing rapidly. So it was fun to see. I think over time, as Coinbase got bigger, I started to kind of get itchy feet. I was ready for new adventure. I was ready to kind of take the perspective that I gained at Coinbase and apply it in a new arena. Was presented with an opportunity to join a company called Trade Republic, which is kind of like a Robinhood for Europe, based out of Berlin. And moved from San Francisco to Berlin mid-pandemic, which definitely do not recommend mid-pandemic international moves, but was an adventure nonetheless, to lead the crypto team at Trade Republic. And so built that from the ground up, and started to kind of see the industry from more of a Web2 perspective of how are non-crypto companies thinking about bringing crypto to their users, and how can we think about bringing more mass market products to market. With that, I think near the end of my time at Trade Republic, a lot of what I was working on was thinking about how do we have scalable custody in place and use that as an enabler for a lot of the different products that we needed to put out there. One of the challenges that we had was these products were just kind of slow and didn't really adapt to the changes in the market, Coinbase Custody included, even though that was the one that I myself had worked on. And so as time went on, I caught up with some of my friends from Coinbase Custody, from the early days of Coinbase Custody, and we were talking about the same things. We were saying, more and more developers are entering the space. They are looking for ways to participate more actively on chain rather than having kind of these Web2 omnibus style experiences. And they need more flexibility to manage their private keys, not like a bank account, but like infrastructure to actually build products on. And so I think all of these perspectives came together to form Turnkey, which we've been working on since March of last year. And Turnkey at the highest level is trying to solve those problems. So being developer first, key management and signing infrastructure to allow developers to more actively use their private keys in really scalable ways as they build products on top of those private keys.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So you moved from consulting with a list of clients into the crypto industry. We have a saying, we're still early. Do you think that still applies?
I think it felt like we were still early in 2018. I think we're in the thick of it now. Like this is the do or die moment for crypto. And I think there's still a ton of opportunity in this space, and we're still early in a lot of corners of it. But crypto is really starting to hit that more mass market point, and there's a lot of public dialogue around it. So it's no longer this niche topic. But yeah, I think it's a mixed bag. I would say it's still early enough. People should still definitely get into crypto.
Yeah, it's never too late.
Exactly.
So tell me about Turnkey. What is it?
Yeah, so Turnkey is really just a simple API to create private keys, sign transactions, and then manage permissions around those transactions. Every time a transaction goes through Turnkey, we parse that transaction and put it through our policy engine, which you can set detailed policies against to say who, under which conditions, can take which actions. This is kind of a pretty narrow surface area for Turnkey, but we really wanted to focus on being this kind of core base infrastructure layer and think a lot about what are some of the tools that people have in Web2 and the concepts that people have applied to Web2 infrastructure, and how can we apply that to crypto and to private keys?
Yeah, that makes sense. So generally, an individual can set up a MetaMask account or a Coinbase wallet account and access Web3, where they own and maintain their own private key. Why can't an institution do this? Is there a fundamentally different way of managing private keys for institutions?
Yeah, so I think there are a lot of things tied up in this. On one hand, there's regulation. So certain types of institutions need to hold their crypto with a qualified custodian. Those are RIAs. On the other side, I think that there are types of institutional tooling that and kind of ways of managing risk that are just expected from institutions that you don't necessarily get if you're holding your private key on your phone. So at the highest level, it's things like multi-user logins, so you can log in as an organization to things, setting detailed permissions for how those users can interact with this, so on and so forth. I think outside of that tooling, though, there is just this element of if you're building a product against something, you need something that is scalable and API first. A lot of the products that you just mentioned, MetaMask and Coinbase Wallet and so forth, they're really great for one-off actions that you're really doing manually using your phone or using your desktop, but they're not great for programmatic actions or managing actions for thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of end users. And that's really where we're heading with crypto products, where more and more users are going to be onboarded through these kind of intermediaries who are helping to manage the crypto experience for those users.
How does Turnkey differentiate themselves from a custody solution like Fireblocks or Genesis? Is there a level of competition there?
Yeah, I definitely think that there is some overlap. But at the end of the day, Turnkey has really just taken a different mental model to how crypto key management should be built. And I think we will call out, we view ourselves as a tech infrastructure provider. We're not a regulated custodian or a regulated money transmitter. Maybe it would be helpful to kind of actually walk through a little history lesson of crypto custody and where it was.
Yeah, that'd be
Really,
helpful.
all these players got started in like 2017, 2018, and crypto was just very different then. It was Bitcoin and Ethereum. You had very few actions that could be taken on chain. People were mostly looking at it as an investment, and at that, a buy and hold investment.
Mhm.
And so because of that, you had a lot of the tech built in that way. So these custodians were serving very large enterprises and institutions that expected a web app first experience. They expected to be able to pick up their phone and call someone because they often were moving hundreds of millions of dollars of crypto, and that's kind of a nerve-wracking thing to do. And because of that, you had a product that every step of the way, client services or operations were involved in the process. You didn't really have APIs as a first-class citizen, so on and so forth. I think our mental model from the beginning is crypto is infrastructure. We should be API first, and we should allow folks to use this as a building block in their broader tech. Three main differentiators with Turnkey. One is being developer first. So sign up in minutes, grab your API key, do your first signature within the first 5 minutes of even learning about Turnkey. Whereas a lot of other players, the button that you're going to see on their website is contact sales, and you're going to get thrown into months-long sales processes, bespoke contracts, and very lengthy integration timelines. The second thing is around flexibility. Because a lot of these folks have based their experience through the web app, they're doing deeper integrations with each of the actions that they're taking on a blockchain. So taking Coinbase Custody for an example, compound governance is a deeply integrated experience into the Coinbase Custody web app with lots of pretty buttons and flows that you can go through to do that. Our view is fully flexible signing is the most important primitive. You should be able to sign any transaction that you want, and that's the only thing that's going to be able to keep up with the evolution of crypto. And so that flexibility is kind of a core tenet for Turnkey as we think about all of the primitives that we've put in place for building. The last piece then is just around our policy engine. Our view is security has to be deeply, deeply customizable. A lot of the policy engines or kind of permission systems that are in place today are a bit more simple and more based on withdrawal limits of, hey, past $100,000, you're going to need 3 approvals on this transaction. We want to have even further detail to say things like certain contract calls or certain kind of actions on chain can be allowed or disallowed. So one of the examples that Jack, my co-founder, really wanted at Polychain was the ability to say users with the trader tag can trade up to X dollars using the swap function on Uniswap v3, but can't do anything else with the key. So we're able to offer that really flexible permissioning, which can fit pretty much any business model that people are trying to build against.
Yeah, that's a great example. And like you said, a lot of these projects came out 2017, 2018. In the grand scheme of things, that's only 5 years ago. The rate of change in this industry has been extremely quick. And that's something that took me by surprise.
Yeah, no, it definitely feels like the infrastructure that made sense a couple of years ago just doesn't make sense anymore. And things are changing so rapidly that sometimes it's a bit hard to keep up.
Yeah, that makes sense. When it comes to retail or institutional or developer use cases, what kind of trends are you seeing in the industry? Are you seeing like institutional users are more thoughtful in security and risk management solutions versus retail users more interested in, contract or counterparty risks? And what are developers thinking of?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of different buckets on the institutional side, and maybe to break it up, there are institutions that are financial institutions, and then there are institutions that are businesses and kind of product builders. On the institutions as financial institutions, I think we're just increasingly seeing more and more active participation with on-chain activities. So folks are more actively participating in staking, in governance, in even running nodes as a way to help bootstrap these networks and get them up to speed, and realizing that by participating in those things, that's kind of the biggest value add that they can have. I think we're also seeing increased interest in actually participating in DeFi and having strategies around DEXs and liquidity pools and so forth in order to be kind of participating in that side of the crypto ecosystem. On the builder side, I think we're moving from this world where we had a lot of folks building more omnibus experiences, and omnibus being kind of all the funds are held together, and you just have kind of a tech layer above that. So Coinbase as an exchange is a great example of an omnibus product where you have a lot of crypto underlying it, but every trade is not necessarily on chain. It's on Coinbase's internal ledger. And so we're moving from that to much more on-chain activity. People actually want every action that they take to have a state change on the blockchain, whichever blockchain they want. And that has been kind of driven by increased scalability of chains, layer 2s and other layer 1s just coming in full force and making it much cheaper to have that participation on chain. So that was on the institutional side. I'll kind of pause there if you had any questions on that, or can talk about the retail side as well.
No, that's great. When it comes to retail, what kind of trends are you seeing there?
On the retail side, I think it's kind of hand in hand with some of the aspects of the like product builder side that I just described, of more and more activity on chain. But another thing that we're really commonly seeing is, in many ways, we're a bit tapped out on the super tech forward crypto consumers. And because of that, folks are demanding more abstracted experiences that allow them to onboard easily into crypto if they have absolutely zero knowledge of crypto. I think Reddit and their NFT project is a perfect example of this, where they have a very abstracted experience and people were super excited about it. They were like, wow, this is my first NFT, and here I am getting involved in crypto. I think we're increasingly going to see that abstracted experience and kind of managed crypto experience, especially on the NFT and gaming side, and eventually as kind of there's more and more regulatory clarity on the financial product side, because um, it's just too hard to onboard into crypto today. I think I remember there was a Punk 6529 Twitter thread about securing your NFTs, and it was something like 106 tweets long. And nobody has time to put in 106 steps to actually secure, the couple $100 of, assets that they might have on such and such an app. And so I think having that managed experience is just going to be a huge boon for people to move forward and to grow the crypto industry.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think the user experience is one of the most underrated things in crypto. I mean, if you have to do 100 steps to secure your $100 NFT, is it really even worth it?
Totally. Exactly.
Let's switch topics. I'm curious about the policy engine you mentioned earlier. How does this differentiate from something like Gnosis multisig, where you can have multiple addresses that are required to sign transactions? For example, like a 5-8 multisig, which requires 5 of the 8 signers to sign before a transaction is submitted. Is the policy engine similar to that? Are there additional layers of security?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think there are a lot of similarities in terms of the concepts there. Um, to maybe create a distinction between the two, our policy engine is a layer over private keys. Um, Gnosis Safe is using private keys within that kind of multi-sig experience, and there is a private key that's associated with each kind of signature that's required in that process. So there's actually a world where you could use your turnkey private key in order to participate as part of that multi-sig experience with Gnosis Safe. One of the nice things about our policy engine is there's a lot more flexibility with the types of setups that you can have, and we're able to take both on-chain and off-chain data, so things like your organizational structure, and apply that to the policies that you're creating. We took a lot of inspiration actually from how cloud platforms manage access and security. So AWS has something called Identity and Access Management, IAM. And that's really kind of what we've applied as we've built out our own policy engine. And so at the end of the day, I think that the simplest way to think about it is this security layer over private keys that takes in a bunch of different data in order to provide fine-grained access controls for who can access the turnkey key. Those private keys on Turnkey can then be used on other kind of on-chain activities. So it's a little bit layered and a little bit complicated, but I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like there's a parallel here between this and compliance and banking systems where only certain users are allowed to make a certain transaction. Is that the case?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly the right way of thinking.
Yeah, was there a layer of compliance when you guys came up with Turnkey? Were you guys thinking that it could be used as a compliance tool, perhaps?
So I think we have built uh, Turnkey to have tools for good compliance. It's not necessarily a compliance tool in and of itself. But yeah, I think that has been something very top of mind of how do we give very security conscious and almost paranoid organizations all of the tools that they need to run an incredibly tight ship as they bring crypto products to market.
Yeah. Let's switch topics again. One of the most important topics happening right now is regulation in the United States. I think we're going to come out of the last year or two with much more concise and clear regulations. But I'm curious from your standpoint, are there any concerns in the jurisdictions that you're launching in? Does this affect the product roadmap in any way?
So to kick off, we're an unregulated tech infrastructure provider. We are not a custodian, and we're also not a money transmitter. But we have definitely seen from our experience at Coinbase the impact of regulation and compliance, and it's something that we're keeping a very close eye on to kind of understand how things evolve. Seeing how regulatory clarity kind of has driven the crypto industry forward over time, I'm excited for increased regulatory clarity over time. I think overall it's just going to be a very positive thing for the industry long term, but it's going to be a bumpy road along the way. And I think we just need to make sure that we're getting the right voices in the room and that we are making kind of informed policy decisions over time. Outside of the US, Turnkey is just focused on the US right now. Outside of the US, I think it's a little bit murkier for us, but that's definitely going to be an expansion area for us as we have some time to dig in there.
Yeah, totally agreed. What's the future of Turnkey look like?
There's a lot to be excited about with that. I think in general, our vision is let's just make it much easier to go from 0 to 1 in crypto, especially around everything related to private keys and transactions. So there is an aspect of let's go broader. So let's add things under the Turnkey umbrella, whether that's around transaction construction and broadcast and other elements associated with that there are some things that we need to dig into there, but also going deeper, so continuing to expand the functionality of our policy engine, continuing to expand kind of the more abstractions for specific chains. We've focused primarily on EVM right now, but are excited about expanding to other ecosystems as well. And then I think even longer term, we have a vision of eventually progressively decentralizing Turnkey. And so I think digging into what that looks like. At the end of the day, we're a 14-person startup right now, and so it's very early days, and a lot of that is going to change over time. But definitely just going to continue to expand that product portfolio.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to following along. Excited to see the future of Turnkey. Last question for you. What's one thing in the crypto industry that not enough people are talking about?
It's a really good question. I think we were both at ETH Denver a couple weeks ago, and one of the things that I noticed talking to folks is people sometimes want to jump to a fully decentralized version of everything. And there was a ton of excitement around account abstraction. I'm super bullish long term on these decentralized experiences offering really great consumer experiences as well. But I think it's just a very long road to get there. And so in many ways, I think people aren't talking enough about the trade-offs between decentralization and usability, and how some more kind of centralized options in the short term can be very beneficial to usability and to bringing more folks into the crypto market. I even think longer term, we're going to see various shades of decentralization that make sense for different types of products. And so it's kind of a vague answer, but I would say in general, just the trade-off between usability and decentralization is something that we need to be very explicit about, and we also need to think about what are the paths that we can go down longer term in order to take those semi-centralized things in a more decentralized direction longer term.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think there's a lot to talk about when it comes to centralization in DeFi, as well as the user experience. I can't wait for users to be able to onboard extremely quickly. And, like they say, it will come.
It definitely will come, and I think it's going to be a huge boon when people don't even have to think about it being crypto. They can just log on and have these very integrated experiences wherever they see fit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Bryce, I really appreciate your time today. I think we had a great conversation on DeFi, on private key management, on trends among retail and institutions. And I'm looking forward to following along with the future of Turnkey.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me, Chris. I really appreciate it. Take care.